For folks, so we renamed it a Learning Lab. So we've had lots of good feedback on what this is, and we continue to ask people, why are you coming back, and what do you want to get from this session? So it's a lot around learning. So we're excited about that. It continues to grow. We're 1,100 folks in the larger group, and tonight we're doing a couple different things, a few announcements. Bob's going to share some of the things he's learning with Adobe's Firefly. I'm going to give just a few of the highlights from this long 2-day conference last week at MIT, and then we'll open it back up for our usual case study, which has gotten squeezed in the last few weeks, but we'll try to get that back. Let me zip through this for folks who are new. You can read this: 50% new, or 50% business, 50% technical. We're really about group learning, a lot of different collaboration going on different mediums. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Case studies, we got a bunch of case studies. We got more than 15 now. We're also getting a little better of actually putting these recordings up. So we finally have May 1st, and I've got someone working on to get the rest of the recordings up. So we're going to continue to try to get ourselves more organized on these learning labs, and to get the whole learning lab up on YouTube, and then also to take different learning segments so it's more bite-sized. For folks in New York and Boston, we've got some networking events coming up. So this Thursday, for the folks in Boston, free will be again at the Time Out Market in Boston. It's near Fenway. We had a great turnout last month. We were hoping for 20, about 100 showed up, 150 RSVP'd. And I'm working with Vic and Humphrey and a few other folks on the one June 7th in New York City, which we haven't even started really promoting yet, but that will come out. I know, Lucinda, you want to, oh yeah, Lucinda, you want to share what that conference is tomorrow? You're on mute.
ODSC is the Open Data Science Conference, and it's focused on open data science. It's a really good conference. There are different kind of levels you can sign up for. You can either go full in person, or you can go go virtual. You can just come to the exhibits and meet the vendors, etc. So, and then also there's a hackathon on the 11th, which is Thursday. So I hope to be taking part of that, but they're kind of choosing teams. So we'll see if I am able to get in, but I've already started working on the Weaviate platform.
So that's an in-person event Tuesday and Wednesday. And then the hackathon, is that in person or virtual?
It is in person, and it's Thursday.
Okay, yeah. Great. Good. Well, thank you. A few other quick announcements. Let everyone in here. I continue to do my $300 steak dinner for execs that don't believe that there's material productivity improvements. I've made a bet 3 times last week, and it's got people's attention, and it's really opened up things. So I truly believe, just for knowledge workers, this is a 10% productivity improvement and creative improvement. And we haven't begun to talk about all the new stuff's coming down with plugins and code interpreter and everything else. We've got a couple new things. We have May 2nd or May 16th next Tuesday. This is a paid event, $99. This is a response to a lot of people asking us. I don't have time to spend 5 hours understanding it. I'm a busy executive. I'm a sales rep at an AI firm. Just get me smart fast. I don't mind expensing it, but I just want to know the basics. I'm tired of being on my heels. So if you know folks like that, or you like that yourself, come to this 90-minute session next Tuesday. And then we also have our job search. This will be a 3rd cohort. This starts Friday, June 2nd. Is Greg, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Greg, you want to introduce your program and tell folks about it, and I'll go back here and display it.
Sure. Yeah. My name is Greg Reyes. I'm a recovering entrepreneur. I used to have a company. I'm now running an early stage accelerator. I was formerly running Techstars Boston, and I left to start my own program to really help young entrepreneurs building companies. And so I'm running an accelerator focused on artificial intelligence and large language models, specifically applications of technologies that are generative, such as ChatGPT, OpenAI, DALL-E, those sorts of things. So really looking at the fusion of best practices in business with kind of a practical guide for building large, impactful companies. So happy to chat with anyone sideline. Definitely reach out to me. The program is called Accelerate, and you can find it on accelerate.raise.vc.
And the geographic space for this, Greg, is how big?
It's a virtual program, so I'm working with companies from all over the world. So really, geography shouldn't be a constraint for building an amazing company.
Okay, so I know we have Adam from Australia on. I'm sure we probably got a few other countries as well. So very exciting. So guys, reach out to Greg if you've got a need or an idea. He's very interested in this program here. Polls I still can't get to work. I'm going to skip all this new stuff, but folks who aren't familiar with these are the basics. It doesn't get everything right. It's 1,000 interns at your fingertips. When in doubt, ask it more cognitively challenging questions here. Don't let your Google trained brain for the last 15 years think this tool isn't powerful. It is more powerful every single day. And it's still best for last mile. So it's 1,000 interns at your fingertips, bring you all the clay. You send the final email, you do the final interview. But we've got lots of other tools to help folks just getting up to speed. Bob, you want to take us over?
Sure. Let me share a screen here for a second.
Yeah, and introduce yourself, Bob, and tell us where you're from. And...
Yeah, my name is Bob Macklin. I've been, Paul, graciously 2.5 months ago, I reached out to him and asked if I could get feedback from the group. He said, okay, you got a 20-minute slot, go for it. It was fabulous. And Adam, who's on the call, graciously gave another 30 minutes at the end to sort of a private tutorial, which I still to this day quite appreciative to launch my interest. On a personal level, I've gotten interested not just in basic usage across different apps, but depth of thinking, more specifically critical thinking and machine learning's analogy to deep critical thinking, which requires a lot of upfront thought to what you want to do and deep prompting. So in any case, that's my area of interest currently. 2024 will probably be more focused on extending that over to business apps through APIs and that sort of thing. The reason I got interested in Adobe is kind of the following. So I'm going to move over to that. So of course, DALL-E, Stable Diffusion, and Mid-Journey have gotten a lot of press out there, and there's probably others and so forth. I made a proactive decision not to invest my time in there. And I'm just going to show you a few quick PowerPoint slides before I go over to a demo. The first, can everyone see that with a top left?
We can.
Okay, great. So at a high level, and this is really the basis of my personal decision, not everyone has the same. Adobe specifically trains on their own stock images, public non-copyright images, and expired copyright images. For example, many of you might be aware of lawsuits against some of the folks I mentioned. And as a more specific example, a $1.8 trillion lawsuit by Getty Images against Stable Diffusion for directly copying a whole bunch of stuff. I wasn't interested in participating along those lines because you don't know down the road what that might mean for all of your investment in these specific assets. So that was one of the reasons for choosing to go with Adobe was their approach to this. And as you can see on the right side, this is still just in beta at the moment. You know, they're promoting transparency. In the bottom left, you'll see on all the images you create, this image not for commercial use, made by Adobe Firefly and so forth. The second bullet there is that the assets are available to the user. If you think about whether you use ChatGPT or Bard for examples, all those conversations are assets. And you build up assets and you want to reuse assets. Well, that's the same thing in the Adobe art world. You create your own user collection. They're going to exist in the clouds. It's images, it's colors, and lots of other assets that become usable. And that become clear on the next slide. The next slide basically shows that what you're participating in is not a single platform, but a whole series of applications that are available if you use their services. And, you know, for example, in the video production world, the #1 Hollywood production software is Premiere Pro. So images will be available to that. If you use Illustrator, for example, or Photoshop, the images you create in Firefly will be able to that. And we kind of saw that live last week when somebody was struggling. I don't recall his name, Paul, but basically going back and forth between Midjourney and copy and paste and Adobe Illustrator and so forth, lots of adjustments. Well, that you can do in real time in Adobe services. So that was one of the key things for me in how I envisioned its use. The next two slides I can literally came from Adobe Firefly, and I'll give you a sample demo in a second, but in the interest of time, I just wanted to show you. So the prompt was real simple: business woman in her office looking at a computer, and I selected as an option, this should say photo, not graphic. And then the subsequent slide, oops, yep, there it is. This is the one that should say graphic. So all I did was change how I wanted the output from photo to graphic. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second and switch over to the actual application. But as you can see from both of these, same image in two different forms. There are other controls and knobs and buttons that I'll show you in a second, but you'll also notice in the bottom left-hand corner is that Adobe Firefly watermark, if you want to think of it as that. And then at the top of the screen, you'll see that it actually posted when you export it in JPEG form. You can see what the title of the prompt is, again, for your own records. So let me stop just for a second, Paul, and let me bring up the app. So, Paul, can you see this on the left-hand side says text to image and text effects and then recolor vectors?
I see, try these out, Adobe Firefly beta.
Yep, that's exactly it.
Okay.
So as of last meeting a week ago, it was just text to image and text effects. I can show you those in a second. And they just added this recolor and vectors. I can give you samples of each to the extent we have time, but let me just briefly describe it because otherwise we've consumed too much time here. Recoloring vectors, if you produce artwork, and in my particular case, I was head of having our tent. This is an outdoor tent for a bicycle racing events of our club. And it was produced by one of our club's graphic artists. A lot of work went in. Output was an SVG file. We shipped it over to the tent producer. And what we had to use is our own eyeballs in terms of did we like the colors or not. What this recoloring vectors is all about is I literally can show you by taking that SVG file, import it, which takes seconds, and I can play around with colors. So it lets people experiment after the graphic artist does their work with changing colors. The text effects, I'll show you that. Let me quickly show you that. And it gives you lots of different options, but we'll just pick one here just for a second. Where it says toasted bread, I will type chat GPT. I've got it in the wrong location. So it's generating now. But it's got dozens of samples here of what you want to look like. Paul, I was playing around with it a while ago, put it in literally in your colors and so forth and background. And it, you know, it can obviously be turned into logos and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, that's just an example of what the text effects are. Vectors I described, again, I can show you an example. And then Get Inspired is really all about samples. They have lots of different things that they have in exploration. I won't go through them right now. If you go on Adobe's Firefly's website, firefly.adobe.com, you can see all the stuff in works. It's pretty phenomenal. Let me go to
Boz, just pause for a quick second. Let me play back what I heard. So this is an alternative to some of the more popular Dolly and Mid-Journey, so text to image. Second is it's a way to get images created that weren't developed on other people's either copyright or terms of service violations, i.e. Getty and a few others. So you can have more confidence if you create that. And then third, it's in beta, but it's already has a whole bunch of emerging capabilities. Is that?
Yeah, that is very fair. What I'd also say, Paul, is that if you just want to compare text to image today, as we did when Google Bard got launched, you would probably jump to Mid-Journey. In other words, you say, stop the development train and all these platforms, and you want to do text to image. I would say Mid-Journey, at least in my opinion, from what I've seen externally, would be the winner. This is still in beta format. A very different approach, in addition to all the precautions I mentioned earlier, is they have a highly active community where Adobe developers and product managers are actively participating. So you get a chance to talk directly to them, and they get a chance to talk directly to you. The rollout is slower as a result, as compared to some of the more pure consumer approaches. So what I was going to do is just do a quick demo of text to image, and that's where I got the businesswoman. But I think you'll, so here is just samples from their community. You've probably seen lots of similar stuff. You can pick any one of them, for example, to start and type in, and what it does, probably a little bit unique. I'm not sure because I haven't been a user of the others. On the right-hand side, you'll see that you can change the format. So here it's square. You can change it to a format instantly of 4:3. You can change it, 16:9 and so forth. You also have, and I won't walk you through only because of time considerations, but you can change the style of what it looks like. In other words, the materials, the color and tone, the lighting, and so forth.
And this is all through text?
The selections are on the right, but yes, it's all text. So let me just move. I think that was Mike that just asked that question.
Yes, it was.
Mike, on the bottom here, you can see that this particular image, which came from the user community, has the text, the prompt is literally at the bottom. So this is a pretty lengthy prompt, as you can kind of see. And if you happen to like them, terrific, but you can also hit refresh and it'll go through it again. And I produced some more complex business pictures for myself. Two people in a conference room, one presenting with a spreadsheet to, a male presenting a spreadsheet to a female executive over a Zoom call. So you can go do that kind of stuff. I didn't like what appeared. I hit refresh and so forth until I got what I want. You can be as specific as you want. And we've seen some prompts in the mid-journey world that are literally hundreds of words long, and we've seen really simple ones, and you see what comes out.
Well, Bob, I
Bob-
just want to pause quickly. Do you want to do one more minute here, then we'll get some questions? I'm sure there's questions for you as well.
Paul, let me stop actually, and let's go to questions.
Okay,
I don't, unless that's probably a better way to go at this point.
great. Yeah, so if you get, we got 60, 80 people on here. If you have questions, raise your hand in the Zoom thing and I'll call on you. And while we're waiting for that, is there a cost for the beta? Bob, or is-
No.
Okay.
Well, yes and no. You have to be a customer. So they're
Oh, you have to
only,
at least bought the Creative Cloud, one of the products.
I actually had only purchased at this point Adobe Acrobat. So I've been using Adobe Acrobat. It's pro version for extracting into Word and that sort of thing. So you have to be a customer of any Adobe product at this point.
That's great. Let's go to
Illustrator,
Tim.
Photoshop.
Tim Andrews, you want to get your question, then we'll go to Alan next. Go ahead, Tim.
Sure. Can you put an image of your own, a photograph or a drawing you have made in here, and then do things with it, have it generate around that, or mix it in with something you generated?
At this time, the answer is no, to the best of my knowledge, in terms of what they've rolled out. As I showed on an earlier slide, the only thing they've rolled out so far is text to image, coloring text, and now scale vectors literally came out last Monday, literally 1 week, 30 minutes prior to our call. However, having said that, it's easy to expect you'll be able to import things that you've done that are in Photoshop, let's say .ai, .svg format, and edit them. They aren't publicly disclosing that. They're showing other things that are possible this time, but you can easily imagine that'll be down the pike.
That's great. And folks, if you weren't here last week, Yasu called in from Japan and he walked through a children's book he made with Midjourney and ChatGPT. That video is on the YouTube channel. Any other questions for Bob? Go ahead, Kevin. Kevin,
You're
we
on
can't.
mute.
Go ahead.
What are some of, thank you. This is you were simple and concise on exposing this opportunity. What are some of the copyright implications if I use the algorithm to generate an image? Is that now, and I use it, is that my image? Is that Adobe's image? Is that a open source image? What's the ownership here? Is this an NFT? What is this?
So Kevin, the truth of the matter is, I don't know. I'm not a copyright expert. What they're suggesting or implied in all of both the language, if you read the agreement when you join the beta program, and you can expect it to be in loud and clear writing once they go public with it, is that you can't do what you can do in others, and I don't want to claim anything specific, say, put it in the image of such and such local artist. Because again, going back to the original, it's their stock photos, expired copyright in public images. In terms of ownership post that, I don't know. I'm sure that's a question for artists, because once they create something, do they own it?
I believe that
Who
the
owns it?
Copyright Office came out with some initial guidance on this, but the two lawyers at the conference last week said this is 100% undecided. There's a whole bunch of
So
Yeah,
should we just
small.
so should we just put a source and a link and maybe a date, and that would just cover everything? Like, it's clear I just got this from this link or source, and I just put a date on it and said that's it. That's where I got it. Just like we footnote other things.
So
How
I
should
don't
we?
have specific advice, but I'll tell you from my experience of uploading a mashup, a song mashup that produced for the father-daughter dance of my daughter, is the algorithms that are used in Facebook and YouTube are pretty sophisticated in terms of detecting the songs. And despite the fact that all of those songs I had licensed or purchased through Apple Music, it doesn't matter. It's whether it can be used in a particular context. I don't have any insight. I'm sure there are attorneys here that will have better. And it'll probably come down to where you use it in terms of whether you're pasting it on your own webpage, for example, or trying to place it up in public domain. But I don't have anything to offer further.
Thank you, Bob. It's a huge issue, Kevin. I've used a couple of weeks ago, front page, a Wall Street Journal, Disney, Paramount, realizing people go into Dolly and type in Bob SquarePants, and there's tens of millions of dollars of licensing that people are concerned about. So there's a whole bunch of lobbying going on here. So thank you, Bob. Really helpful. I just want to move forward. I'm sticking myself on the for 15 minutes to talk about the MIT conference, and I want to open up to the case studies. So let me share. If we go quickly through here, we can even get. So last Wednesday and Thursday, I was at this conference. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Great. So this is a MTech, it's a clunky name, but MTech Digital is the name of the conference. It's put on by MIT. They do 3 or 4 of these a year. They dedicate this one just to generative AI, and they had a whole bunch of people right in the mix of it. And let me just go through and just highlight a few of them. People have questions. Tom Siebel, people may know him, billionaire, started at Siebel Systems. He is a fire plug. He said a whole bunch of things here. I think the thing I want to highlight is that he's talking about, and we saw the same thing from the CEO of or the founder of HubSpot, that the interface to every enterprise app, SAP, CRMs, ERP, SCADA systems are going to totally be redone in his view, in both their views. That those are menu drop downs that we've had for the last 20 years. And this generative stuff is now allowing me, instead of saying, boy, what were my sales last quarter, how many leads I have, going down and finding a report, to literally typing it in HubSpot or SAP, or verbally saying it, having it understand the intent and come back. So a whole bunch of changes on the interface there. Whole bunch of discussion on both days, and you guys have probably seen LLMs, are they expensive and not? Who's going to win? Private ones or open source? So lots of different debates on that. Thomas Wolfe, I found, is a very credible, calm person. He said a couple interesting things, and Lucinda, I'm looking at you as a data scientist. It's not just enough to scrub and suck up and vacuum up the entire public internet anymore. Data quality counts, he said. We've known this for 20 years, and we just had like a 6-month little journey over here, and it's coming back to that. So that was a recurring thing called, guys, at the end of the day, data has always been God for the last 15 years. Data is still God. And particularly as you get to more trying to find information that's not biased. Lots of conversation about bias. Someone told me that this is secondhand, that Globe's not going to put an LLM on all their newspaper articles because they know there's a whole bunch of racist things or biased things they had 20 or 30 years ago in articles. And, I know it's in the news. This is a lot of big companies here, but there were a lot of big companies very concerned about doing any kind of project that would cause them internal, external business risk around diversity or data that's not biased. This person, Regina, she is an engineer who became a lawyer. She's at Ropes and Gray, which is a high-end law firm, extremely articulate, extremely intelligent, and right in the middle of all these legal issues. And she went through her talk, and I just finally I had to ask in the Q&A, what's happening, according to her, this trillion pieces of information that got sucked up in the internet and trained ChatGPT and these others. It absolutely grabbed a whole bunch of copyright materials. It absolutely grabbed a whole bunch of materials that violates terms of service agreements. She mentioned, Bob, she mentioned the Getty thing in particular. All those have watermarks that you agree to not reuse. It sucked all those up. Absolutely a whole bunch of PII information. So there is a whole bunch. And the only question is, from a legal standpoint, are there financial damages? And I think you're going to easily be able to show damages and easily be able to get to a heartfelt story that would sell to a jury. And the next question is, is there going to be an injunction from a judge or a financial settlement? And she certainly doesn't think there's going to be a injunction to shut this product down, but there's absolutely probably going to be millions and millions and millions, if not billions, of settlements over thing. We've seen this already with Facebook. The Cambridge Analytica thing, which, anybody use Facebook, I think you're getting 50 or $100 back. It was like $700 million, or 300 of that went to lawyers. So $300 million of legal fees went to lawyers just on Facebook. And we have 5 billion people using material in all these countries that are violating a whole bunch of laws. It's something to be worked for. The other thing she said, which I hadn't heard before, that big companies are now increasingly concerned that going forward, information they have on the open internet will get sucked up in the training data. And how do they protect themselves? Do they put more stuff behind walled gardens? Microsoft, there are 2 execs from Microsoft. Let's see here. Changing software, we know that. Bias, no, let's see here. Microsoft's named this whole category of products Copilot, so very similar to everything we're talking about here. It's human plus AI. It's something that's next to you. You don't use it, unassisted AI, so that's really their theme. It's very clear Microsoft, surprise, surprise, leaning heavily into the corporate market, how they can get corporates to do what their Nirvana project is right now, is every corporation wants to get their own chat GPT behind their firewall that has zero legal risk, no customers touch it, but has just their data with 100% accuracy. And that's never going to happen. There's always going to be hallucinations or errors, but that's definitely a big market there. And a lot of discussion in 2 days on, boy, is LLM models actually coming down cheap enough? And you'll see 1 or 2 vendors that believe it, that you'll be able to get your own LL model for $10,000 to $30,000 on all your own data. Importantly, your data, you own that, you own the model, and therefore you own the output. So even if you use ChatGPT to others here, you don't own that model. And there's a big question on 3 or 5 year view or 10-year view. If you really believe this is going to be intellectually important, do you actually need to own your model? Go ahead, Mike.
Paul, what is LLM? What does
A
that stand
large language model.
okay.
Thank you for asking, Mike. It's the category of AI that the text-to-text things sit under, and it's part of one of the AI engines here. Go ahead, Win.
So Paul, when you say that, obviously a goal of a company would be to have it's a model that's just their own. But I would think that the internal data isn't enough to build an LLM that is functional as ChatGPT. What you need is the combination of the big giant model that's trained on an absolutely huge amount of stuff combined with yours. So you don't get to own the model and you aren't actually clean in your data inputs, and you've imported all of the problems of the internet data.
It's exactly, and Malin may have more details on it. This isn't precisely a little bit what Microsoft's working on, how you actually get the leverage of both. But go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, without getting too technical at it, what we're seeing a lot more of these days are using smaller models for the language part of it. So, the things that are able to, and I put this in quotes, understand what you're asking and able to format a response to you, but use those as kind of the bridge into a specialized search engine, a specialized local search engine. So you're loading all of your documentation, all of your email, all of your customer notes, everything that you have into a very, very local, what's known as a vector database. And then using the language model to kind of help you find where in that vector database the answer will be. And I don't want to get technical about it, but we're seeing more and more of that. And that language model can be somewhat smaller. We've seen language models from Meta, for example, that are a lot smaller and a lot cheaper to run and are open source, so you can download them to your server now. I think we'll be seeing a lot more of those sorts of things coming up in the near future.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Alan. Alan, did you have a question or was just hoping?
Nope, I just wanted to reply to that.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, just a comment off of Wynn and Alan. So in reverse order, a friend of mine built an LLM for his professor. Unbeknownst to the professor, he took all of his research, stuck it in an LLM using a vector database. I'll skip the technical details there, put a ChatGPT interface on top of it. So his professor basically had access to all of the research that he has been producing over the last 30 years. To Wynn's comment, ultimately the question with regard to combining two sources of data, private data and public data, is a question whether you need access to the public data. If it's a combination, you're trying to get a superset, then of course there are issues and questions around that in terms of integration and who owns it and that sort of thing. But there are applications for integration. There are also applications, like I just mentioned, for keeping them separate. Customer service is a big one for keeping it separate, by the way. Lots is going to take place in that area.
Great, thanks, Bob. Certainly, I think at a high level, lots of certainly a shared belief. There's going to be lots of different things in the market. Big fundamental horizontal foundation models from Microsoft and ChatGPT. Lots of little industry specific, domain specific. Recurring theme again and again was domain specific training data and domain specific training data and model are very important. And Bloomberg was used as one. There's a whole bunch of going on in the pharmaceutical stuff as well. I'll give myself just 2 other minutes. Angela's product manager, OpenAI. This is a big debate. Some people may have been seeing it. She said our ability to do prompt engineering is still developing. We learn a lot from Twitter. Prompt engineering should not be underestimated. Many complex customer problems that they were dealing with, where they thought they'd have to go back and fine tune the model, they instead were able to find a solution for the customer. Some on the internet was using a much more complicated prompt. Now, on the flip side, there's another VP at OpenAI. He did a tweet a few days ago, thinking that overall, at the end of the day, we didn't have to go through training to use Google, and that we really want to get more understanding intentionality here. So there's a little debate on that, but definitely, I found it very interesting to hear that, through better prompt engineering, that big, huge text you can put in there, you can actually solve problems that you thought you couldn't solve before, which is really exciting on level. Last thing I'll show you guys is, and I don't want to get in the whole thing here, just post it, but Jeffrey Hinton's a guy at Google who quit last Monday. He's been a whole bunch of shows. He had a 45-minute talk. I did the best I can to write down his logic stream on why he thinks AI is going to take over the world, why we are doomed. You can watch a video. He comes across as a very sober, not crying fire in the theater type of guy, and he walks through his logic. Some people disagree with it, but there's definitely a logic stream here. And this was at MIT. There was a whole bunch of things. So he spoke for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and there were another, I don't know, good 10, 15 minutes. There's people just pounding him with questions here. And everyone left just depressed. You come out, even the speaker said, God, I want to go home and just crawl up and crawl in my bed here. So we had kind of a day and a half of, oh my God, look at all this great stuff too. I'm one of the 4 AI gods, and I'm totally fundamentally changed my life. I've quit my job. I know I'm in AI and I should stay at Google because more data here, but I can't live with myself. So lots of debate on what his real motivation was or not, but it's something to take seriously. I think he puts an argument that deserves our attention. Last thing, I'm going to jump back to a more fun one. So there was a bunch of demos. One, it's stunning. So Paramount Pictures was there. and I forget the guy's name. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on there in these studios. It used to take studios 2 and 4 weeks to do something, collapsed down. People may have seen the articles where there was a gaming company that fired 5 of its graphic artists because they can all do it now on Midjourney. One of the people there was a guy from Flawless. I'll put the link in there, Flawless AI. And he showed an example of where they had a video and they were able to have like 40 or 50 different versions of the video. They had one with the curse words, one without the curse words, one in Japanese, one in all these different things here. So just in itself was stunning. And then he talked about how many times they have to reshoot if they want to get more room in a different angle. And this kind of 3D aspect is another thing that's it's coming really fast. So not only are we seeing a transformative effect just on texting, there's a whole nother train coming down. And we were there, I forget when the writer's strike happened, but another guy there from that industry, and he said, hands down, the writer's strike's about ChatGPT. It depends on what, but it writes pretty darn good jokes. It's pretty good at first draft at scripts. It's actually pretty good at giving you 5 different endings for a story. If you don't want to understand which ones you want or how do you want to end it. So lots of exciting stuff there. But let's open it up for the last few minutes here on other case studies that people want to share or use cases or exciting things they found. Raise your hand and
Well, I actually have a question, and that is anybody here working on using these foundation models as a means of working with internal data? And like, how are you doing it? Is anybody actually doing that sort of programming?
Yes.
yeah, go ahead. Alvin.
Yeah. So what we do is the foundational models we are using is Ada and the OpenAI language models. And what we are doing is basically allowing businesses to build these internal chatbots with their data. And already we are seeing production level use to help with internal customer service, internal research departments, labs, things like that. So use the large language models and build custom chatbots from it.
And are you doing it in the clean room type setup with AWS? Because AWS kind of says you can put it in a box, right? And so you get the factory settings in the model, and then you change the settings based on the data that you have coming in. Are you doing it in a setup like that?
No, we are doing a large language model from OpenAI and context, vectors and embeddings. So answering with context. I feel like trying to fine tune and trying to mess too much with the LLMs. That's a lot of work.
Good.
Right now. Yeah.
Thank you all. Let's keep moving here. Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you want to get in.
So Paul, you've been at a number of events, especially in the last 2 to 3 weeks. In the last week, what is your single biggest inflection point in your thinking around, I'm going to say, this generative AI space? Like, what's your or oh wow, or just what's new for you?
Thank you, Kevin. I mean, obviously the fire hose has been on and I'm fighting it up. I think the thing that I've been most struck by, I was fortunate there was this really big AI conference at MIT 2 or 3 weeks ago. It had, Sam Altman was speaking, it had Vinod Khosla, they had Dilip George from DeepMind, whole bunch of Fidelity, whole bunch of people in that day. And people in the industry, after a whole day listen, stood up and said, oh my God, this is bigger and moving faster than I even thought, because I'm so focused on my little world over here in DeepMind. If I helicopter back up to what I saw last week, similar things. So much bigger companies, probably half of them were, huge fees they pay to MIT here, but kind of the same thing called, boy, this is real. It is big. So my headline directly answer your question is that, I feel like I've just kind of come up and trying to understand the top of this hill and this precipice, and this stuff is moving and it's real. And the rest of the 99.9% of the world don't understand it. And I think the acceleration is going to really start happening in the next 6 to 9 months. It's going to get more confusing and more money is going to come in and more vendor claims. But anyway, that's my headline. I don't see it, and I don't see anything slowing it down. I mean, people are really pushing Hinton on his view, and he said, well, maybe it'll plateau a little bit, the capabilities in AI. But this is not metaverse. This is not blockchain. This is not augmented reality here. This train is moving. It's moving fast. The use cases are even more compelling than people thought. So you guys are really part of the early pioneers and the early explorers, and there's going to be just millions and millions of people are going to fight down the same learning curve you guys have. Go ahead, Bob.
Quick question for you, Paul. Do you have any indication of Microsoft's Copilot rollout? I mean, it looks quite fascinating.
It's a good question. They were asked 3 or 4 times, both on the stage and after that. I don't. They're being cautious. I mean, their vision demo is pretty good, but
Paul,
I think
I've heard.
Oh, so go ahead.
I it's Adam here.
Yeah,
Howdy,
go ahead, Adam.
I know that it's in private preview right now. There's literally 24 companies globally that they're currently piloting it with, their top customers, and they're targeting second half of this year. That's all I've heard, but I have heard at least it's second half of this year, which is something.
I mean, they clearly have I mean, they are energized. They're getting recruits. I mean, it has transformed. I think people notice the market cap of Microsoft now is 2x Google. It used to be, so I mean, they have a lot of wind in their sails here. The other thing I've heard 3 or 4 times is all the publicly traded companies, Google, Microsoft, Adobe, and others are very concerned about some of the downside risk of something bad happening into their stock. So they're being a little extra cautious on that. Yeah, go ahead, Gary. Welcome.
Hey, everybody. I work in the ERP space at our research hospital, and I'm very fascinated with how do we feed our data into this and maybe use our research data or any of our other data. So is there any good trainings out there of, or just YouTube channels or anywhere I can go to learn more about how to seize that opportunity?
Say more. You're looking to learn how to get ERP data into training models?
Just any kind of company data. How do we feed that into one of these chat GPT models, whether it's research data or anything? I want to learn more about that process. So I don't know if you can lead me to anybody or if you have a training coming up soon.
One person on the call is in this business. What do you recommend, Alden? Other than calling you and buy some services from you. I mean,
I was a little biased and didn't want to do self-promotion here.
Yeah, bring it up.
Yeah. No, just I would say, if you like YouTube, do YouTube. And my method of learning is, just to try it out. It doesn't cost much these days to try it out. You take $50, spend it on our platform, try it out. If you're a programmer, download LangChain, throw some data at it, try it out. To be honest, I don't think anybody I've met is that smart with this revolution going on that they are able to see 16 steps ahead. The only guys who I see rolling are the ones who every day are trying out new stuff.
One thing to suggest, and I did this last week and it was quite effective. I was learning how to build ChatGPT extension and I had no idea how to do it. So I took the ChatGPT documentation, pasted it into ChatGPT, and then asked my question. And it was actually very effective.
This is also
Amazing.
another
Yeah.
example of, here's a question we have, ask the interns. So go ask, and particularly GPT-4, which is more rational. You know, how would I learn about using LLM models in an enterprise? Even better, I have an ERP at a hospital. We have a bunch of structured and unstructured data. I've got a budget of $50,000, $2, no budget. How should I think about this problem?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Gary,
Totally.
I do have a video on my YouTube channel that talks about how to get started with programming in GPT and Python. It's very basic. My channel is mostly on entrepreneurship, but I'll paste a link into the chat if you want to take a look.
That'd be great. Thanks. Thanks, Greg. Last call, contributions or stories?
Yeah, Paul, I'll just call people's attention to the link I just put in the chat.
Great, please.
I'm pretty sure it's just in the last week here. I found this super prompt, which is really pretty exquisite. The link also has a nice breakdown in a graphic of the different sections of the prompt. But really, the only thing you need to know about is the second to last line where it says user's goal. You just put in your goal there, whatever you're trying to accomplish with ChatGPT, and it's almost like it spins up agents within the one conversation. And you can literally just keep hitting N and enter, like next, next, next. Grab your popcorn and watch this thing workshop whatever your goal is till it comes to the solution. It's pretty cool.
So let's end, Adam. Adam's one of the true early absolute prompt engineers. What tell the audience about your 100 days of ChatGPT, which I know is
So Paul, back in early February, I started a challenge to myself. It was probably as much about the personal challenge and the commitment of it as the actual exploration, but I committed to tweeting out every day for 100 days straight about my explorations with ChatGPT. And I just finished that day before yesterday. So yesterday was my first day off in over 3 months of not putting out a thread, but they started to get quite in-depth and extensive as I explored the tool. And reach out to me. I put in there somewhere back on the thread my Twitter handle, which is NFT Mentis, just like it says in my name here, Mentis. And I'm happy to share anything I've learned, or there's tons of tips and tricks out there about, it's hard not to go just about every direction after 100 days with the tool. So probably my biggest takeaway, honestly, I've learned is the limitations. Things like the hallucinations, the fact that it'll make stuff up and be sure, as well as the memory capacity. At a certain point when you're working with it, for example, if you want to tune up your resume for a job application, but you put in the job application, then you put in your resume, and then you put in your cover letter, it's already starting to lose the information about what was in the original job application. So that's really where things like some of the other speakers today have pointed to, using some external database starts to come into play. So it's an incredible tool to even that prompt I just put there. To be fair, like I said, it can do quite a bit to get you to your goal without needing to go outside of ChatGPT itself. But the tool definitely, after 100 days of banging on it, I'm definitely finding the limitations as well.
Yeah.
How do I pull up that link that you talked about? How do I pull it up?
Can you see the chat on the conversation here?
No.
Look at the bottom of your screen. You should have a bunch of icons for screen share, participants, or whatever it might be.
Yep, apps, whiteboard, more.
Yeah, there should be one of those that says chat on it.
sometimes just under more like.
Show chat previews.
Just be chat at the bottom, where then you can see
chat.
the conversation amongst everyone. Yeah.
Okay. And then
So
which
if you
ones?
scroll up there, it's actually, I think, only 4 chats back. It says Flash Theory 704. It's a Notion site.
Okay,
That's
great.
the one with
Thank
that
you.
super prompt in it.
Adam, do you like Notion?
I do actually. What I like, which I will explore now that I have a little more time, I've heard that you can actually very easily make one of these vector databases that people are describing out of Notion pages. So I'm keen to explore that. I'm taking my 100 days. I've realized it's great I did this 100 days of tweets, but who's literally going to scroll through Twitter to go find day 87 and that one little gem of value? So I'm working on starting to migrate all of those threads into a Notion site. And then I'm going to experiment with whether or not I can build like a chatbot on top of it or something. Because if that's true, then Notion becomes quite a bit more powerful for me. But I'm pretty sure they're also integrating AI, and it's really picking up in popularity with the templates that people are making. And actually people are starting to make a living selling templates on top of Notion as well. So now that I'm done with my 100 days, I'm keen to actually explore some other things within AI in the space. Yeah.
Well, great. Well, congratulations, Adam. Everyone, thanks for attending,
you.
and folks who are new, welcome. We'll talk to some of you next week then. Thank you.
Thank you.